In question 6 of this exercise, the problem statement says the diagonal of a rectangular field is 60 meters more than the shorter side. If the longer side is 30 meters more than the shorter side, find the sides of the field. So in any such problem involving geometrical shapes, it's always helpful to draw a figure representing the given situation. So let's do that in this case. So I'm going to draw a rectangular field which represents the rectangular field given in the problem, and then I'm going to draw the diagonal of this field. So this is one of the two diagonals, and now let's assume a variable x for one of the dimensions. So let's say that the shorter side is x meters. This means that the longer side is 30 meters more than the shorter side, so the longer side will be x plus 30 meters. So the shorter side is x meters, the longer side is x plus 30 meters, and we also told that the diagonal is 60 meters more than the shorter side. So the diagonal should be x plus 60. So x plus 60 meters. And now we have this right angled triangle where the dimensions are x and x plus 30 for the two legs and x plus 60 for the hypotenuse. So now these three lengths should satisfy the Pythagoras theorem, and that is how we get an equation in x. So applying the Pythagoras theorem to this triangle, we will get x square, the square of this side, plus the square of this second leg, so that's x plus 30 square. So the sum of these squares should be equal to the square of the third side, the square of the hypotenuse, which is x plus 60 whole square. So this gives us an equation in x. Let's rewrite this as a standard quadratic equation in x. So we get x square from this first term, and then let's expand this binomial square. So we get x square plus 2ab, or 2 times x times 30, so that's 60x, and then 30 square is 900. So this is what we get on the left side, and then on the right side we will get x square plus 2ab, so 2 times x times 60, so that's 120x, plus 60 square, which is 3600. Now let's simplify this equation. So we one of the x square terms, one pair of these terms cancels out, so we're left with x square. Then we have 60x and 120x on the right side. If we shift this 120x to the left side, we get minus 60x, and then we have 900, and if we bring this 3600 to the left side, we have 900 minus 3600, which is minus 2700. So x square minus 60x minus 2700, this is equal to 0. And now this quadratic equation is what we have to solve to find the value of x. So you can solve this quadratic equation by any method, either by factorization or by completing the square or by applying the quadratic formula. So I'm going to apply the quadratic formula in this case. So the coefficients of the quadratic are a is equal to 1, the coefficient of x square, this is equal to 1. b, which is the coefficient of x, this is equal to minus 60. And c, which is the constant term, is equal to minus 2700. Now let's apply the quadratic formula and find the values of x. So x will be equal to minus b, so that's minus of minus 60, so that's plus 60, plus minus root b square, so that's minus 60 whole square, or 3600, minus 4 into a, which is 1, into minus 2700. So minus 4 into minus 2700, that becomes plus 10,800. So this is what I get under the square root sign, and then in the denominator I will get 2a, which is 2 times 1, or 2. So if you did not follow this step, just pause this video for a moment and make sure you understand how I calculated the discriminant. Now all we need to do is find the numerical value of this expression. So we get 60 plus minus 3600 plus 10,800 is 14,400, and you can see that this is actually a perfect square. So if we take the square root, we get root of 14,400, this will be 120, and we get 60 plus minus 120 by 2. So if I take the plus sign, I get 60 plus 120 by 2, so that's 180 by 2 or 90. And if I take the minus sign, I get 60 minus 120 by 2 or minus 60 by 2 or minus 30. Now what does x represent? It represents a length. We assumed x to represent the length of the shorter side. So this means that it cannot be a negative number. It must be a positive number. So the only valid root in this case is 90. So the shorter length is 90 meters, which means that the longer side, the longer dimension is 120 meters. And this means that the hypotenuse is 90 plus 60 or 150 meters. And now we can verify that 90, 120 and 150 actually satisfy the Pythagoras theorem, because 90 square plus 120 square is actually equal to 8100 plus 14,400, and this is equal to 22,500, which is the square of 150. So 90, 120 and 150 satisfy the Pythagoras theorem, and this means that the value of 90 as the length of the shorter side is the correct answer. So to summarize, the sides of the field are 90 meters and 120 meters. So that's the answer of this question. Question 7 of this exercise, the problem statement says the difference of squares of two numbers is 180. The square of the smaller number is 8 times the larger number. So we have to find the two numbers. So the unknowns in this problem are the two numbers, and we are given two pieces of information about these two numbers, and we have to use that information, set up a equation in one or both variables, and then solve the equation to find the two numbers. Okay, so let's start by assuming that the larger number, so the larger number is x, and let's say that the smaller number is y. Okay, now the first piece of information says that the difference of squares of the two numbers is 180. So using this we can write one equation, x square minus y square. The difference of squares is 180. So this is one equation. Then the second piece of information says the square of the smaller number is 8 times the larger number. So the square of the smaller number, or y square, is 8 times the larger number, or 8x. So y square is 8x. So from these two equations, what we can do now is question 8 of this exercise. The problem statement says a train travels 360 kilometers at a uniform speed. If the speed had been 5 kilometers per hour more, it would have taken 1 hour less for the same journey. Find the speed of the train. So suppose that the train goes from point A to point B, which is a distance of 360 kilometers, and it covers this distance at a uniform speed of v kilometers per hour. So let's assume that this is true. So we have to find the speed of the trains. Let's assume that it is v kilometers per hour on an average. So the normal time taken by the train, or the time in this case, will be 360 by v, distance by speed. So 360 by v hours. But this problem also says that if instead of going at v kilometers per hour, if the train had gone slightly faster at v plus 5 kilometers per hour, then the time taken would have been 1 hour less. So at this speed, at v plus 5, the train would have taken 360 by v plus 5 hours, distance by speed again. And what the problem tells us is that this time is 1 hour less than this time. So we can write this as 360 by v and 360 by v plus 5. The relation between these two quantities is that this quantity on the right side is 1 less than this quantity on the left side, or we can write this as 360 by V is equal to 360 by V plus 5 plus 1. And this is how we can set up an equation in V. Now let's rearrange and simplify this equation and see what we get. So we have 360 by V, and on the right side let's take the LCM. So we get 360, and for this one we will get V plus 5 in the numerator, and in the denominator we have V plus 5, and this means that we have 360 by V, and on the right side we have 360 plus V plus 5, so 365 plus V by V plus 5. Now let's cross multiply and try to write this in a simpler form. So we multiply 360 by V plus 5, so this is 360 V plus 360 into 5 is 1800, and on the RHS we will get V times 365 plus V, so that's 365 V plus V times V, or V square. So this seems to be a quadratic equation in V. So we have V square, so let's write that here, V square, then we have 365V, and we have 360V here, so if we bring it on this side we are left with 5V, so we are left with 5V, and then we have this 1800, which if we bring to the same side this becomes minus 1800, so minus 1800 is equal to 0. So what we get is a quadratic equation in V, and now all we need to do is to solve this equation and find the value of V, which is the speed of the train. So to solve this equation I will split the middle term 5V. So I note that for the constant term minus 1800 I have 45 into minus 40. This combination gives me minus 1800, and also 45 plus minus 40 is equal to 5, which is the coefficient of the middle term. So I'm going to split the middle term 5V as 45V minus 40V, and then I have minus 1800. This is equal to 0. Now from the first pair of terms I can take out V common, so I have V times V plus 45, and from the second pair of terms I can take out minus 40 common, so I have minus 40 times V plus 45. This is equal to 0, and now I can take out V plus 45 common, so V plus 45 times V minus 40, so this is equal to 0. And from here I get two values of V. What are those two values? I get V equal to minus 45, or I get V equal to 40. So because V is the speed of the train, this root minus 45 does not work because the speed cannot be negative. So the only valid root in this case is V equal to 40. So the speed of the train is 40 kilometers per hour. And let's verify whether this is correct. So at 40 kilometers per hour, the train will cover a distance of 360 kilometers in 360 by 40, or 9 hours, right? And if the speed is increased by 5 kilometers per hour, so the speed becomes 45 kilometers per hour, which is V plus 5, then the time taken would be 360 by 45, which is 8 hours. And we find that 8 is 1 less than 9. So this answer 40 aligns with what is told to us in the problem statement. So the answer is that the speed of the train is 40 kilometers per hour. In question 9 of this exercise, the problem statement says, two water taps together can fill a tank in 9 and 3 by 8 hours. The tap of the larger diameter takes 10 hours less than the smaller one to fill the tank separately. Find the time in which each tap can separately fill the tank. So this problem is actually a very interesting problem, and it may also seem to be somewhat difficult. But the trick is to figure out how to set up an equation in the unknown. So before we do that, let me show you a visual to help you think better. Okay, so here's a tank, and these are the two taps that you see. This first one is the larger tap, and this is the smaller tap. And the problem statement tells us that the larger tap alone, when opened alone, will take 10 hours less than the smaller tap to fill the tank. But when opened together, like what you see right now, the two taps will fill the whole tank in 9 and 3/8 hours. So we have to find the time in which each tap can separately fill the tank. Okay, so let's suppose that the smaller tap takes X hours to fill the tank alone. So the smaller tap takes X hours to fill the tank alone. Then the larger tap will take X minus 10 hours to fill the tank, because we are told that the larger tap takes 10 hours less than the smaller one to fill the tank. Okay, so the larger tap takes X minus 10 hours. Now what we need to do is we need to find out that in 1 hour what fraction of the tank will the smaller tap fill and what fraction of the tank will the larger tap fill. So in 1 hour, if the smaller tap is running alone, it will fill what fraction of the tank? So because it takes a total of X hours to fill the whole tank, in 1 hour it will fill 1/x of the tank. And similarly, the larger tap, if running alone, in 1 hour what fraction of the whole tank will it fill? So because it takes X minus 10 hours to fill the whole tank, in 1 hour it will fill 1/x minus 10, this fraction of the tank. Okay, and this means that together the two tanks will fill a total of this fraction plus this fraction of the tank. So in 1 hour the two taps will fill a total of this fraction 1/x plus 1/x minus 10 of the tank. Okay, so that's great. But we also know that the two water taps together can fill the whole tank in 9 and 3/8 hours. So 9 and 3/8 hours, which is actually 75/8 hours. This is the total time it takes for the two taps to fill the tank together if they're running together. That means that in 1 hour the two taps will fill what fraction of the tank? So they will fill 1 divided by 75/8 of the tank, and this is equal to 8/75. So in 1 hour the two taps will fill 8/75, this fraction of the tank. But we've also calculated this same fraction in terms of X. In 1 hour the two taps will fill up 1/x plus 1/x minus 10 of the tank. So from here we get our equation in X. So we can say that 1/x plus 1/x minus 10, this should be equal to 8/75. So let me just recap how I did this, because this is the key step, because after this it's only a matter of solving the equation, but the main step is to arrive at this equation. So I assumed that the smaller tap takes X hours alone to fill the tank, and the larger tap will then take X minus 10 hours to fill the tank when running alone. This means that in 1 hour the smaller tap will fill up this fraction 1/x of the tank, and the larger tap will fill up this fraction 1/x minus 10 of the tank. And that means that if the two taps are running together, they will fill up 1/x plus 1/x minus 10, this fraction of the tank. Okay, so this is the fraction in terms of X. But we also know that the two water taps, when they run together, they fill up the whole tank in this much time, 9 and 3/8 hours, which is 75/8 hours. So that means that in 1 hour the two taps will fill up this fraction 1 divided by 75/8 or 8/75, this fraction of the tank. So we have this fraction in terms of X and we have this fraction's numerical value. So we equate the two and we get this equation in X. And now all we need to do is we need to solve this equation and find the value of X. So let's do that now. So we have 1/x plus 1/x minus 10. This is equal to 8/75. So let's take the LCM on the left side. So in the denominator we get x times x minus 10. Then in the numerator we get x minus 10 for the first fraction and x for the second fraction, and this is equal to 8 by 75. So now we can write this as, in the numerator we can say this is 2x minus 10 because we have this x and this x, so 2x minus 10, and in the denominator we have x square minus 10x, and on the right side we have 8 by 75. Now if you want, you can cancel out a common factor of 2 on both sides because we have 2x minus 10. So if we take out the common factor of 2, we get x minus 5, and in the denominator we get x square minus 10x, and on the right side if we divide by 2 we get 4 by 75. Now let's cross multiply. So we have 75 times x minus 5, so that's 75x minus 5 times 75 is 375, and then on the right side we have 4 times x square minus 10x, so 4x square minus 40x. Now let's write it as a quadratic equation in standard form. So we have this 4x square, so let me write it here, 4x square, then we have minus 40x, and this 75x, if I bring it to the right side I will get minus 115, so minus 115x, and then if I bring this minus 375 also to the right side I have plus 375. This is equal to 0. So this is the quadratic equation in x that we now need to solve. Now to solve this equation I'm going to use the technique of splitting the middle term. So I need two numbers whose sum is equal to minus 115, the coefficient of x, and whose product is equal to 4 times 375. So 4 times 375 is 1500, and I need two numbers whose product is 1500 but sum is minus 115. So those two numbers are minus 100 and minus 15. Minus 100 and minus 15 because their product is 1500 and their sum is minus 115. So let's split the middle term accordingly. So we will get 4x square, and then minus 115x I can write it as minus 100x, and then minus 15x, and then plus 375. This is equal to 0. Now from the first pair of terms I can take out 4x common, so I get 4x times x minus 25, and then from the second pair of terms I can take out minus 15 common, so minus 15 times x minus 25 again. This is equal to 0. So this means that I can take out x minus 25 common, so x minus 25 times 4x minus 15. This is equal to 0, and from here we get the two roots of the equation. We get x is either equal to 25 or x is equal to 15 by 4. X is equal to 15 by 4. Now which of these two roots should we pick? Which of these two roots is the correct answer in this situation? So we can observe that if x is equal to 15 by 4, this is numerically equal to 3.75. 15 by 4 is equal to 3.75, and if x is 3.75, this means that the smaller tap takes 3.75 hours to fill the whole tank, and then the larger tank takes 10 hours less. So 10 hours less than 3.75 will actually be a negative quantity, and that tells us that this root has to be discarded. It is not the correct root in this situation. So the correct root is x equal to 25. So this means that the smaller tap takes 25 hours alone, when flowing alone, when opened alone, to fill the tank, and this means that the larger tap takes 10 hours less than this, or 15 hours to fill the tank. So the answer is that the smaller tap takes 25 hours to separately fill the tank, and the larger tap takes 15 hours to separately fill the tank. Now if you want, you can verify that this answer is correct. So if the smaller tap takes 25 hours to fill the tank separately, then in 1 hour it will fill 1/25 of the tank. And the larger tap, if it takes 15 hours to fill the whole tank, in 1 hour it will fill up 1 by 15th of the whole tank. And now if you sum up these two fractions, 1 by 25 plus 1 by 15, you will get 8 by 75. So in 1 hour, the two taps together will fill up 8 by 75 of the tank, which aligns with the information given to us in the question. So the answer 25 hours and 15 hours is correct. In question 10, the problem statement says an express train takes 1 hour less than a passenger train to travel 132 kilometers between Mysore and Bangalore, without taking into consideration the time they stop at intermediate stations. If the average speed of the express train is 11 kilometers per hour more than that of the passenger train, find the average speed of the two trains. So this is the problem statement. Now this is a classic problem on speed, distance and time, and the secret to solve any such question is to carefully set up the equation that describes the given situation. And once the equation is set up correctly, solving it is a straightforward task. So let's see how we can set up the correct equation in this case. So clearly the unknowns are the average speeds of the two trains, and we know the relationship between them as well. We are told that the express train is 11 kilometers per hour more than the speed of the passenger train. So that's our starting point. That is what we'll use to set up the equation. So it's always helpful in such problems to draw visuals to describe the situations. So here's a visual I've drawn for you, which represents the two situations. The express train goes from Mysore to Bangalore, this distance of 132 kilometers. The passenger train does the same thing, but the express train takes 1 hour less than the passenger train to do this. Now, if we assume that the speed of the express train is, the average speed is v kilometers per hour, then we can write the average speed of the passenger train in terms of v as well. The express train is 11 kilometers per hour faster, so the passenger train's speed can be written as v minus 11 kilometers per hour on an average. Now this means that the express train will take a total time of 132 kilometers by the distance by the speed, average speed, which is v, so these many hours, and the passenger train will take, so this is the time of the express train, and let's write the time of the passenger train. So this will be the same distance, 132, by the average speed v minus 11, these many hours. So this is the time the express train takes, and this is the time the passenger train takes, and we know that the express train takes 1 hour less than the passenger train. So this information can now be used to write a equation in v. So we can write 132 by v, the time taken by the express train, is equal to 132 by v minus 11, the time taken by the passenger train, minus 1, because the express train takes 1 hour less than the passenger train. So this is how we can write an equation in v, and now all we need to do is to solve this equation and find the value of v. So we have 132 by v, and on the right side let's take the LCM. So we have v minus 11 in the denominator, and in the numerator we have 132 minus v plus 11, so 143 minus v. And now let's cross multiply. So we have 132 times v minus 11, so that's 132v, minus 132 times 11 is 1452, and then let's cross multiply v with 143 minus v, so we get 143v minus v square. And now let's rearrange the terms. So we bring this minus v square to the left side, so that becomes v square, and then 132v, and we bring this 143v and subtract it, so we get minus 11v, and then we have this minus 1452. This is equal to 0. So this is the quadratic equation in v that we now need to solve. Now to solve this quadratic equation, you can use the quadratic formula, or you can factorize this equation. by splitting the middle term. So that's what I'm going to use. So what I need is two numbers whose sum is equal to -11 and whose product is equal to 1 into -1452. So if you play around with the factors of -1452, you will find that -1452 can be written as 33 times -44, and the sum of these two numbers is -11. So that's how we can split the middle term. So let's do that. So we will get v square, and then -11 becomes 33v, -11v becomes 33v minus 44v, and then -1452. This is equal to 0. So from the first pair of terms v square plus 33v, we can take out v common, so v times v plus 33. And then from the second pair of terms, we can take out -44 common, so -44 times v plus 33. This is equal to 0. And now we can take out v plus 33 common, so v plus 33 times v minus 44. This is equal to 0. So the two roots of this quadratic equation are v equal to -33 from the first factor, and then v equal to 44 from the second factor. So clearly the valid root in this case is v equal to 44 because speed cannot be negative. So the speed v, which was the speed of the express train, so that's 44 kilometers per hour. So the speed of the express train, the average speed of the express train is 44 kilometers per hour, and the passenger train has an average speed that is 11 kilometers per hour lower. So the average speed of the passenger train is 33 kilometers per hour. So the answer is that the speed of the two trains are 44 kilometers per hour and 33 kilometers per hour. And what I would like you to do now is take this as an exercise and verify that the answers are correct. So plug in these values back into the situation given to us and see if it aligns with the data points that are given to us in the problem statement. Question 11 of this exercise, the problem statement says, sum of the areas of two squares is 468 meters square. If the difference of their perimeters is 24 meters, find the sides of the two squares. So we're given the sum of the areas and we're given the difference of the perimeters, and from these two data points we have to find the sides of the two squares. So let's draw a simple visual to help us represent this situation. So suppose that these are the two squares which are being talked about in the problem statement, and let's say that this smaller square has a side length of x meters. Then the smaller square will have a perimeter of 4x meters, because the perimeter of a square is simply the sum of the four sides and all four sides are equal. So the perimeter of the smaller square will be 4x meters, which means that the perimeter of the larger square will be 24 meters more than this. So the perimeter of the larger square will be 4x plus 24 meters. And from here we can say that the side of the larger square will be 4x plus 24, this perimeter, divided by 4. So if we divide 4x plus 24 by 4, we will get x plus 6. So the side of the larger square is x plus 6 meters. So from the fact that the difference of the perimeters is 24 meters, what we have concluded is that if the smaller square has a side length of x meters, then the larger square has a side length of x plus 6 meters. So this difference of 6 in the side length translates to a difference of 24 meters in the perimeter. Okay, so now that we have the side lengths in terms of x, we can write the areas in terms of x. So the area of the smaller square will be x square meter square, and the area of the larger square will be x plus 6 whole square meter square. And what we can do now is take the sum of these two expressions, and that sum should be equal to 468 meter square. So let's do that. So we should have x square plus x plus 6 whole square. This should be equal to 468. And from here we get an equation in x, which is actually a quadratic equation. So let's simplify this, write it in the standard form. So we have x square, and then let's square this x plus 6 whole square. So we get x square plus 2ab, so 2 times x times 6, so that's 12x, and then plus b square, which is 36. This is equal to 468. So let's collect the terms. So we have x square plus x square, so that's 2x square, and then we have 12x, and then we have 36, and this 468 we subtract it, so we get 36 minus 468. So 36 minus 468, that's equal to minus 432, and this is equal to 0. So this is the equation, and we can actually cancel out the common factor of 2 on both sides. So we get x square plus 6x minus 216, this is equal to 0. And now we can solve this quadratic equation and find the value of x. To do that, I'm going to use the technique of splitting the middle term, 6x. So I need two numbers whose product is equal to minus 216 and sum is equal to 6. And those two numbers are 18 and minus 12, because 18 times minus 12 is equal to minus 216, and 18 plus minus 12 is equal to 6. So I can split the middle term accordingly. So I can do x square plus 6x now becomes 18x minus 12x, and then I have minus 216, this is equal to 0. Now from the first pair of terms I can take out x common, so I will get x times x plus 18, and then from the second, so x plus 18, and then from the second pair of terms I can take out minus 12 common, so minus 12 times x plus 18, this is equal to 0. And now I can take out x plus 18 common, so x plus 18 times x minus 12, this is equal to 0. Now I can get the two roots of this equation. So the two roots are x equal to minus 18 corresponding to this factor, and x equal to 12. So x is either equal to minus 18 or x is equal to 12. Now because x was the side length, it can't be minus 18 because it has to be positive. So this root does not work for us in this situation. So the root that works is x equal to 12. So the side length of the smaller square is 12 meters, and the side length of the larger square is 6 meters more than this. So this is 18 meters. And now we can verify whether our answer is correct. So the total, so the difference of perimeters is the perimeter of the smaller square is 48 meters and of the largest square is 72 meters, and the difference is 24 meters. That's correct. And the sum of the squares will be 12 square plus 18 square meter square, and you can verify that 12 square 144 and 18 square 324, their sum is equal to 468, which was this piece of information given to us. So the answer to this question is that the sides of the two squares are 12 meters and 18 meters.
Thank you for watching our channel. This video உங்களுக்கு பிடிச்சிருந்ததுனா கமெண்ட் பண்ணுங்க, லைக் பண்ணுங்க, ஷேர் பண்ணுங்க. மறக்காம இந்த சேனலை சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணிட்டு பக்கத்துல இருக்கக்கூடிய பெல் பட்டனை ட்ரைன் தட்டுங்க.